Turner.
And I'm Kale.
And welcome to the Nest. All right, so I have some baseline questions for you. So when did you start racing and how did you find it?
So I started doing actual racing kind of around when I was 16 or so, kind of during high school. My sister got into doing karts, and then I started doing karts after her. And for about 2 years in high school, I ran real karting. And then once we kind of got to college, I was like, well, we don't have the money to keep doing this. So we kind of sold it all off. And I was supposed to actually come to Ball State to dive. And then I ended up seeing esports tryouts. And I ended up trying out for an esports team. And here we are. And it's doing great.
That's super cool.
Let me see here. I have a lot of questions. Here, we can do this. If someone has a limited budget, where should they invest first? Like wheels, pedals, something like getting into sim racing?
Yeah, so definitely I feel like a good investment is just getting into like a force feedback wheel kind of. There's been, so sim racing within the past couple years has really taken off kind of as a sport almost, but then also as a hobby. There's a lot of people that have always like wanted to get into sim racing, but never wanted to drop the thousands of dollars to get into it. Mm-hmm. But now there's companies like Fanatec, because like back in the day, Fanatec was like the only kind of place where you can get like high quality kind of direct drive bases. And after that, they kind of essentially were dropping the prices back because more competitors, different like businesses and different products started coming in. So now you have like Moza, and then you have Fanatec, which is still up there. And then you have a couple new ones that are like coming in, but then there's still some top of the line semi-cubes that are pretty expensive, but like lower direct drive wheelbases give such a good feedback with basically, and they're compatible with PS5 and Xbox. Certain ones are like more the entry level ones. And they've gone from like a $2,000-$3,000 budget down to like $500-$600 to where it's a lot more affordable to kind of get into it. And it's not just a competitive sport anymore. Like it's more easy for like someone who just wants to do it as a hobby to hop into as well.
Yeah. So the U.S. economy system is working as it should.
Indeed.
So do you have like a at-home rig versus a school rig, or do you all of your racing at the Esports Center?
So my at-home rig travels with me, actually. So I started off my freshman year. So the Ball State, we had 2 sim rigs that were funded by Ball State. And those are technically, we call them our varsity rigs that people race on. And Alif, since he's from Singapore, he can't really bring his own rig over since it's a long flight. And they're a lot to transport, actually. And so Alif always took the far right rig, so he takes up one of those. And then my freshman year, when I first started racing, I was using one of the Ball State provided rigs. And then after my first year, I ended up getting a scholarship from esports, and then I also ended up getting sponsorships that I can put their like logos and different sponsors on the cars, and then I would represent them during the races. And they were giving me money, and then they gave me money, which funded my own sim. So not only did it open up the sim that I was using at Ball State so that we could start growing our team as an esports team as well, but then it also gave me my own personal rig that I could do. So I own my own rig that I race on, and it is my rig at home. So like anytime, I don't do it for winter break, but like summer breaks, I disassemble the whole thing and I essentially put it in my mom's car and drive it back home because it can't fit in my little car.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
My next question is, what are some common mistakes you see newer sim racers make?
So one thing that's just super easy to do about sim racing is just, it's a video game. Like there's no real consequences with it. So it's like, if you were in real life, you're not really going to just barrel a car going 150 into a corner. Yeah. But with it being a video game, it is harder to have that like sense of speed, and like you kind of do lose that. So like sometimes you make a lot more mistakes than you would like in a real car. But like when it comes to beginners, they're just too overconfident in their abilities. They play like more arcade style games to where it doesn't take as much skill. But with like more in-depth sim racing, the harder you go in, like the less assist space so you get turned off. So you do start like struggling a little bit with like, you'll go off the track more, you'll make more mistakes just by like not making the corners. If you're like battling with someone, you might not leave them as much room, and then you might end up taking both of each other out. So I think the biggest thing is just overconfidence. Like you kind of need a reality check every once in a while when you start.
Is there a race that's kind of like stuck with you, like you like will never forget, like in your past 4 years of being here?
I'd say probably the only races that have stuck with me, because I've won a couple races throughout my years, but it's kind of funny because my car number is number 2, and everyone refers to me as the number 2 driver from Ball State, and you can take that whichever way you want because I'm technically the number 2 car. But then I also finished second behind a Leaf in pretty much every race. So any race really where I do beat a Leaf is kind of just a race that I enjoy. There's been a couple on ovals and then also on road courses, but I think my favorite one is Long Beach, and it's a really tough street circuit, and it's the only circuit where I've actually just been able to beat a Leaf based off skill. And it's so technical, and it's such a, like, you're right on the edge of just hitting a wall and your race is done. And that is how I beat a Leaf. It's because he hit a wall and his race was done. But it's so, like, driving on that fine line. But then also I've been out to Long Beach with work and working at that track before. So it's just a super cool track. And then just being able to go back to back and win that race, it was just super fun to do.
Yeah. My next one is, how do you approach learning a new track?
A lot of trial and error. So even just before this, it's a track that I already know. And it's just, once you, like, you need to get back up to speed on these tracks because we see the posted, like, lap times on, we know a target time that we need to get to. And all we really do is you make a lot of mistakes. You just keep going until you crash and you reset. You keep going. And each time that you keep doing that, you kind of learn, like, if you make a mistake in one corner, you learn to tone it back a little bit from there. But then you over push and then you, like, tame it right back to, like, that 2% right under it. And then that's kind of where you know where that sweet spot is. So you essentially, or at least how I do it, is through trial and error. Mm.
Are there any, like, strong similarities between sim racing and, like, IndyCar Formula One format kind of thing?
In just, like, the way they drive, or what do you...
Like, in general, like, the set lap times, because I know that, like, in F1, they have, like, 4 days to, like, kind of practice, learn the track, and, like, do a target lap time, and I don't remember what it's called. Like, just to qualify.
Yeah. So there's different ways that iRacing can do stuff, and the way that we do it for the Collegiate iRacing League is we have the whole week to practice, and it's all practice on our own terms. Obviously, us as a team, we will do team practices so we can practice as a team together more often, but then we also do our own practices on that. And when the actual race happens, so we have races on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday nights, and the sessions normally open at 8 o'clock. We have a 50-minute practice session with everybody in the league that's racing in there. So everybody in the league who's going to be in that race that night drives for those first 50 minutes, and then we go into a 10-minute qualifying, kind of depending on which series it is. And then after that, that's when the race starts. But then there's a couple other series that we've been looking into where they actually do the exact same, like Formula One and IndyCar, where they have, like, a Thursday is like practice 1, practice 2, Friday's practice 3 with the qualifying, and the race is on Saturday. So at least for the collegiate series that we do, it's kind of all in one night, but we do all of our practice the whole week before and leading up. But there are definitely races and different series that do the exact same kind of format like real life does.
Yeah. Next up is back to kind of hardware. Do you think there's a piece of hardware that that you have, I guess, seen the biggest differential in performance for you? Like, you got one piece of hardware and then all of a sudden you felt the difference.
Yeah, and that's that direct drive.
The wheelbase.
Okay. Obviously having a great PC helps because, yeah, this past season's been a bit of a struggle because my own computer was getting pretty bad. So having a good computer that can at least run the game is good because the directors at Esports gave me a 4080 and it's just overkill for what I need now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the direct drive wheelbase is definitely where you see it because there's gear driven and then there's belt driven and then there's even a spring loaded one that's like $90, pretty cheap ones. But it's just with like the belt driven and the gear driven, they just kind of rumble a little bit and they don't really give you good feedback. Like they'll just rumble when you feel something happening, but they won't like tell you if the back end of the car is sliding or like all of that. But then when you get to a direct drive wheelbase, you can feel a lot more. And like I think the best way to say it is if you're going over like a rumble strip, kind of like if you're driving on the highway and you like veer off the road and you feel that rumble under your tires, when you're doing it on like a belt driven or a gear driven, it just feels like you're like just a one long vibration. But on a direct drive wheelbase, you can feel like every individual little bump on those rumble strips.
So, okay. So you guys are pretty well into the season so far. I'm guessing it's ending in a couple weeks for you guys. How do you think the season has gone for you guys? Because I've seen you guys have some good placements, but like, how do you think it's going?
This season, I feel like compared to our past seasons, has not been as dominant. There's definitely been a couple more issues just kind of with league stuff going on and the racing. There's a lot more new people into the league this year, and that's caused a lot of problems. There are people that sometimes, like you kind of said, the newcomers that are a little too overconfident. So there's been multiple races where we've been taken out by other people, and we just haven't had the best results this year. But overall, like on races and things that are in our control, in our performance, we've done great. We've performed great as a team. Our practices, our pace, like everything has just improved drastically this year. There's just been a lot of other outside influences that affect the results, but looking at it from a team perspective, the team is growing and overall performance of the team is good.
Yeah. I guess my next question would be, how do you see sim racing evolving in the next, like, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, sim racing, even just in the past 2 to 4 years, has evolved just from what it was, even evolved exponentially from there, and I can only just see it keep going up. There's so many new softwares, new people coming into it. There's so many new brands that are, like, implementing new features that are trying to get sim racing as close to real life racing as you can with motion and that kind of stuff. There's points where now, like, you have to wear a full helmet in some sims, and they have, like, strings that are attached to the helmet to pull you to the side when you're going through a corner. Like, there's so much, like, new technology and engineering that's being put into it that I really don't know where it's going to end up in the future, but I think it's just on a massive incline upwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm correct, you are a senior, right?
Yes.
Is there something you would do differently these past 4 years, or would you do it all over again? Like, is there stuff you regret?
I think, and I mean, it kind of comes with every sport. You kind of run into some burnout and whatnot, and I think that there were multiple times where my drive to drive would be a lot higher than others, and then there'd be a lot of times where I'd kind of not want to go in and practice as much. But just knowing that, like, consistency pays off, and that's really strong. And sim racing is just putting in, even if it's just a couple laps a day or something, just making sure that you stay essentially, like, warm within the sport, and you just keep driving without trying to burn yourself out, but then also knowing your limit to burnout, which is something that I did find. So, but just kind of knowing not to overdo yourself in that way makes it a lot easier to enjoy it throughout the whole year.
Mm-hmm. If you could collaborate with any team, brand, or real-world driver, who would it be and why?
I feel like with any team, I would definitely go with BMW Motorsports, just with the backing. It's super fun team, and BMW Motorsports in sim racing actually is connected with the BMW M Team Redline, and that's Max Verstappen's sim racing team. So they're just one of the most dominant powerhouses up there. But I mean, that's intense, and I don't think I'd probably ever get to that level that they'd be at. But like another fun one would just be like Porsche Motorsports, because they do a lot of Porsche Cup driving, like Porsche Cup cars, and a lot of their sim racers actually get put into real cars to test, and they do a lot of different series on like their YouTube channel where it's like, can our best sim driver beat people that actually race in our series? Mm-hmm. And they've proved that. But it's just super cool when teams that also have real life motorsports teams, like actual racers, and then when they have an esports team with it too, it's cool because the esports guys get the opportunities to drive more and experience real life driving from that.
You mentioned Max Verstappen. I know that, like, as a team of sim racers, you guys all watch Formula One, and I feel like you guys are pretty divided on what teams. Like, I know Lucas likes McLaren, and like I know you guys like Mercedes or Red Bull. Like, where does everyone fall?
Yeah, so Lucas and Dylan fall under McLaren, and Alif, I would say he falls under Ferrari right now. Alif is a Lewis Hamilton fan. So yeah, Alif loves Lewis Hamilton, so he follows Lewis wherever he goes. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm a Carlos Sainz fan. So I was Ferrari for the past couple years with Sainz. It's been a little rough this year with Williams, but I still support him. Okay, he's gotten podiums, but
more podiums than Lewis Hamilton has.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
yes, he has gotten more podiums than Lewis Hamilton. But then another driver that I enjoy is Ollie Behrman, just because I liked watching him when he filled in for Carlos Sainz at Ferrari, and he had a great debut, and then he ended up in a full-time seat at Haas, which is good to represent U.S. soil right there. Jake is definitely a Max Verstappen only fan. That's essentially all he really cares about. I mean, I think for the most part, it's pretty just those kind of same drivers: Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Sainz. I know a couple people were Leclerc fans, but they haven't been doing great this year, so I'm just not going to say anything.
Man, Casey's down in the dumps on that one.
Yeah.
This is just a fun one. What do you drive in real life?
I was going to ask that.
Is it like personal car?
Yeah, personal car.
Yeah, I have a BMW.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 6-speed. It's pretty fun. I was very excited this morning when I woke up and I saw snow, and the first thing I went to do was grab my car keys, and I did not put my car into a curb, so that's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We love that. Do you have any more? Or?
Yes.
I have a ton. I just don't know how many you have.
I have some. Okay. I made me lose them. God, can't believe you.
I put you on the spot.
You did.
I can do one while you're thinking if you want.
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's see here. I asked this to Wova last week. But are there any drivers, sim or real world, that you study or take inspiration from? Or would you say you're your own driver?
Honestly, if anything, I take most inspiration from a Leaf.
Yeah.
Out of all of that,
That's what I was thinking you were gonna say.
I feel like I take most inspiration out of a Leaf and my dad. Honestly, when it comes to that, my dad, he ran dirt racing when he was growing up, and he's done a lot of that. He's tested Indy cars, but we didn't have the money to kind of go through with that. So he has a lot of real life experience with that. So he gives me that experience, but then he's also an IndyCar team manager. Okay. So when he's kind of working with those teams and he takes away what he learns from race weekends, like learning the setups, like roll bars, different kind of strategies and whatnot. And I talked to my dad a lot about strategy and what I should do if I'm struggling in this corner with the car. And since he's on the radio with the actual drivers at these actual tracks doing the same thing, he's able to relay that information over to me, and then I can kind of use my own driving style with it, but I can at least take that information and adapt it.
That's a really cool thing to be able to say, is that I got information about how to race from my dad. That's a very cool thing.
So, you mentioned that your dad was in racing. Do you plan on going into racing? Because I know you're in media, so I don't know if you're going to combine the two or just go straight to racing after you graduate.
So actually my plan for right when I graduate is to go straight into media. So I have a job lined up. I've been with them for the past 5 years, and it's actually funny because it's Graham Rahal, who is an IndyCar driver. I do media for his performance shop. And with that, we also have a couple race teams. We have a Rahal Ducati Moto team and then a Rahal Radical Indianapolis. So it's two different, we have motorcycles and then sports car racing that we do there. But for the most part, right out of school, yes, I'm going to go into doing media. I do a lot of videography and photography for our motorsports teams. Ideally, though, my dream is to get into racing. So I've talked with my dad, and once we get all the student debt paid off, we are going back into racing after that. We thought about doing karts, but we might end up into a Formula Ford series, but we're definitely looking at getting back into it after. But that's more of once we get settled and get more kind of money coming. So straight out of school, I'm going into the workforce.
That's super cool.
In your opinion, what separates the top tier sim racers from the rest of the pack?
So I feel like what separates them, there's kind of two different things. The first one is setups. It's just there's some series where if it's open setup series, if you're going against a pro driver, which is something that we do, Leaf and I race against this one pro driver named Sean Campbell, and he has these pro setups, and we'll be qualifying, and everyone is within a couple tenths of each other or whatnot, and then Sean's just 3 seconds ahead, just based off setup. It's just we don't have as much time as these pro teams have to just put into developing setups to get the fastest out of the fastest. But I think what separates it, at least in fixed setup, which is what I enjoy because I do so much better in fixed setup when everybody's in the exact same car. So when you're all on the same playing ground, that's when it comes to driver skill. Mm-hmm. And what separates the top percentage of it is really just mental endurance. How hard can you push yourself at that 99.9%? Yeah. If you cross over that 1%, obviously you're going to start losing out on it. But when it comes to like watching these pro drivers drive, they don't make mistakes. Like they're at the top, like they're playing at the top of their game constantly, and just being able to hold that like high percentage and like basically not making any mistakes at that high of a risk is where I feel like that's where you really see the top.
Yeah. And then secondary question, where would you rate yourself?
So I know that even a Leaf doesn't rate himself when he races at a full 100. He rates himself, I think he says like a 90%, which makes me feel like I'm more of an 80%. But I know that a Leaf's been doing it longer, so I would categorize myself around 90% as well. Because you want to push super hard and you want to be at the top of your game. But like I said, if you go over that line, that's when you start losing out. Like you're going to start making more mistakes. You're pushing too hard. You'll go off the track. You'll crash. Like it's that kind of stuff. So it sucks because sometimes you'll be doing a race and you'll know you have more in you, but it's not worth it to pull that more out because of the risk. So you just kind of have to tell yourself like, it's okay if I'm not fully at that 100%, but you can at least still try to push yourself as close as you can be.
Yeah.
So like I know like our other teams have like rivals, like we have Akron as a rival for Rocket League. Do you guys have a rival, like school or team that you're like, oh man, we're going against these guys?
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's schools and drivers mainly that we go against because there's sometimes because we're definitely a powerhouse of the league. We have sometimes the most drivers in the field, and it's just sometimes we go into these races and if one of our teammates did something bad to another team, like if that team has 2 or 3 cars, that whole team's going to try to target our team. So then they don't race as clean and whatnot from there. But there's been 2, like Sean Campbell is one of them, and then there's another driver who's Jordan Johnson from Kent State. I know how you guys feel about Kent State, but it's just the
man. I'm glad we don't have video.
It's the setups, which is kind of where it makes it super challenging, and that's where those rivals start. Because in fixed setup, like I'm not trying to boast, but Ball State just runs away in fixed setup. Like we can just pull away in that. But then when it comes to more open setup stuff, that's when we've seen more rivalries happen, and that it does get closer and tighter in point standings.
Yeah. What is your favorite part of competing as part of a team versus solo?
Oh, it's so much better being part of a team. I'm terrible when it comes to just driving on my own because I can do fine and I can get good results on my own. But then if I make like one small mistake or if I crash or something, like I get a little more mad than I should. And that's what also I love about being in the Esports Center is being around your actual teammates and being in that center. I feel like it tames you down because like when I'm racing in my basement and say someone pushes me off the track, I bet my mom could hear me from the 3rd floor from screaming. But it's more rewarding, and also doing it as a team, like getting those team accomplishments instead of just doing it by yourself. I feel like it just kind of get boring being by yourself. So it's super fun to have a team to do it with. Yeah.
Do you, I guess like a little side secondary question, do you intend to try to be like, I know you said you're going out of your senior year, going straight into the workforce. Are you going to be doing it still, like sim racing as you, or do you think you're going to try and find like another team to be a part of outside of college?
I guess I haven't really thought about like team wise what I'm going to do out of college. I do plan on still continuing doing sim racing.
Okay.
And I know that there's a couple of drivers that aren't graduating yet this year, but we plan on doing an endurance series, which starts in March next year and it runs all the way until October.
Okay.
So even though I will be graduated, it's technically not a like Ball State kind of league that we're doing, but we're actually still running a Ball State car.
Okay.
So I'll be doing that with them, and it's 4-hour endurance races, and it's one of those series where it is like a practice on Thursday, quali Friday, and then race on that Saturday. But I mean, for the most part, I think that's what I'm going to do. I know I get pretty caught up with work when I'm back home for summers and whatnot, so I don't think I'll have a whole lot of time to essentially be as competitive as I am now in the sim racing, but I'm definitely at least still going to stay within it.
Yeah.
Is there a piece of advice you've received in sim racing, like, or regarding sim racing that's really stuck with you? And who was it from?
So yeah, I'll give 2 pieces of advice here. And the first one's just kind of based off actual driving itself, and it's trail braking is definitely one of the biggest things that you learn in sim racing. And it's one of the hardest things to kind of to master, because in real life, when you're braking and you start like turning into a corner, you can feel the back end of the car rotate. But in the sim, it's really weird because you feel the back end of the car rotate through the steering wheel. So having to kind of learn that and getting used to trail braking, which Alif taught us that kind of the first year we were doing it. So just learning trail braking for physical driving is probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've taken. But I'd say probably, so even Charlotte and Daniel are 2 sport consultants that I had my sophomore and my junior year for mental side of stuff that they've given. They've given a ton of advice on just like mental like skills. And I feel like that's on the sim racing side. When we do these sports psych meetings, the consultants are just really beneficial to us, because we're constantly like beating ourselves up if we like make a mistake throughout the lap. But we have to learn that if we make a mistake right then, to not like get mad and not keep building up on it, that you just have to drop it or like take a breath, like relax. Like, so these sport consultants, like Charlotte was really good about essentially like tensing up and then letting everything out in like a smooth refresh. And then Daniel was great about not like beating yourself up after and always like looking for the positives in these outcomes. So just the mental side of it can get a little stressful, but just having those people there kind of helping you and keeping you on a clear mind is really good.
Yeah. If you could design your own dream track, what would it look like?
Oh, wow. I've never actually thought about that. So, I don't know. I feel like my own dream track definitely would not be like something made up from everywhere. I feel like my own dream track would be different sectors of my own favorite tracks that I like driving. Okay. So, I don't know. I'd say probably like it'd be a mixture of Spa with like going up turn 2, and then definitely Long Beach would be in there. The Motor Speedway definitely has to be in there. Just home track for that one. And we'll throw one more in. I don't know. It's like, it's tricky because I've never really thought about designing my own track. But honestly, the old Nashville street circuit that they ran in IndyCar for like 2 or 3 years, just with how bumpy and intense it was, just going over the bridge was just something super cool to see. So that'd be a cool feature to put in.
All right. So like, I have one last question. What's your favorite memory? Like, whether it be with the team or in the center, or just overall in esports in general?
Yeah, so I'd say favorite memory it's definitely just with the team. So like my freshman year and somewhat of the sophomore year, we didn't really do a whole lot like outside of esports. It was more of a like, oh, this is just, we're a team, we drive fake race cars on a game. But kind of talking with like Alif and getting to know the team, we all got closer. So then one of my favorite things was probably last year when we would do bonfires at my house. So I'd have the whole team over, we'd do bonfires, and we'd set up a projector screen outside of my backyard, and we would just put on the F1 practices when they're at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and we would just essentially stay up late with the bonfire, get food, and just watch F1 practices as a whole team. And that was just good bonding time, because we never really ever did that as a team. We never had a lot of time together. So it's nice it's still racing, but at least we're not racing and we're not in a high pressure scenario.
Okay. And then I guess my last question, how badly are you going to pressure Dan to get everybody to do go-karting next semester?
Okay. I did see that. I did see that message that got put in. That was essentially talking about doing go-karting. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm probably not going to pressure people a lot with it. I know Leaf's definitely going to pressure people a lot, and a lot of the other new guys are going to pressure them into it. But I don't know. I'd like to go up against Dan, if anything. I'd probably pressure Dan the most to race him.
I think Dan might want to take you up in like pickleball if you're doing go-karting with him.
I still play pickleball too. I've talked to Dan about pickleball before. But yeah. No, I mean, I'm not going to pressure him too hard, but I think it'd be super fun. And it's like, it's that thing. It's like getting the team out, just doing things that we all have the same kind of interest in, and then even getting more people to come do it. It's just going to be just a fun outing with the team. Yeah. You get to know more people. You get to see like different sides of them. So it's just fun to do that. Okay.
I believe that is everything then.
Thank you for joining us. I've been Trinity.
I have been Turner.
Thank you for having me, and I've been Kale.
All right, and this was The Nest.